Hey guys, so my name is Gabby and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In 2023, I have plans to attempt a thru-hike of the entire Appalachian Trail. And even though I have a lot of experience backpacking at this point, I do have some fears for my upcoming thru-hike attempt. So for today's video, I thought it would be fun to talk about those fears. Let me just pause for a second. In 2022, I also attempted to thru-hike the Appalachian Trail and I ended up hiking over 700 miles. I made a video talking about my fears before my first thru-hike attempt, so if you're interested, I'll link to that video down below. Alright, so let's jump right into the list. This isn't probably a fear that most people have, but one of my fears for the trail this year is hiking in the bubble. Last year I left from Amicalola Falls State Park on February 15th, and I spent the first night at Springer Mountain Shelter. There was only 6 people at the shelter that night, and then the following night at Hawk Mountain Shelter, there was probably between 10 to 20 people. While that may seem like a lot of people, it is nothing compared to the amount of people in the bubble. So this year I'm starting in March instead of February, which is a much more popular time to start. Just to give you an idea, here's a comparison between the number of people starting the trail in February and the people starting in March. Keep in mind that there's still a couple months to register and a lot of people don't even register their hike, so there will be more people than is listed here. Hiking in the bubble gives you the opportunity to meet new people and make a lot of new friends, but it does mean that you'll be competing with a lot of other people for campsites and hostel space. I imagine that it's going to be really frustrating to try to go to a hostel on a really bad weather day and then just to find out that the hostel is completely booked up. So my second fear for my upcoming Appalachian Trail thru-hike is Norovirus. So I remember including this on my list of fears from last year, and I think regardless of how much hiking experience you have, Norovirus is still something to fear. When I was on the Appalachian Trail last year, I got very fortunate to not catch Norovirus at all, but there were a lot of people around me who were getting sick. For those who don't know, Norovirus is a gastrointestinal virus that can cause vomiting, diarrhea, and chills. I think it would be miserable to get Norovirus while out in the woods, and dehydration is also a serious risk of getting Norovirus. But yeah, I absolutely hate getting sick, and unfortunately Norovirus is a big part of the Appalachian Trail, so I'm going to try my best to avoid getting it. The next thing I want to talk about is ticks. Last year on the Appalachian Trail, I ended up getting bit by 2 ticks, but I saw a lot more than that. Ew, it's a tick. Alright guys, so I just took a shower and ate dinner. Unfortunately, while I was in the shower, I found a tick on my leg, so I pulled that off and just gonna keep an eye on it to make sure it's okay. Ticks can be especially scary because they carry Lyme disease, and I don't know a ton about Lyme disease, but I know that it can be debilitating, especially if you don't catch it quickly. So to catch tick bites as early as possible, it's best to try to do tick checks every day. So that basically just includes like going through your hair, checking your armpits, basically every kind of crevice on your body. And the scary thing about ticks is that some of them are so small that they literally just look like a little fleck of dirt. So it's important to be really thorough when doing your checks. If you happen to develop any fever or like flu-like symptoms while on the trail, it's important to go visit a doctor as soon as possible just in case you have got Lyme disease. But yeah, ticks freak me out. I don't like them. Alright, so number 4 is injury. For those of you who watched my Appalachian Trail vlogs from last year, you probably remember that I ended up with a hip injury. Injuries can be so frustrating on the trail, and unfortunately they're super common. Some of the biggest causes of injury on the trail include falling or pretty much just overuse. So when you're walking all day every day, you're putting a lot of strain on your body. So it's very common to see people with foot, knee, ankle, hip injuries. While you can't fully prevent injuries, I think some of the best things you can do are make sure you stretch every single day. That's kind of where I think I went wrong. And then also just be really careful when you're hiking. If it's wet or snowy, slippery, muddy, just slow down. Take your time and keep in mind that there is no rush. Another fear that I have for my upcoming thru-hike is spending too much money. I don't think that this is one that is talked about often, but a lot of times hikers find themselves about halfway through the trail and they realize that they're not going to have enough money to complete the trail. Lots of websites tell you to budget for about $1,000 a month, but honestly I think that number is kind of unrealistic at this point. My budget for the trail is going to be around $1,200 a month, which is not a very large budget. So last year on the trail, I was definitely spending a lot more money than that, and I'm gonna have to be a lot more conscious of where my money is going this year. So this year I'm gonna have to be really conscious of my hostel and hotel stays, and then I'm also gonna try to take advantage of the hiker box more. That's not really something that I used a lot last year, but you can find a lot of good stuff in there. Come here. Hi. What do you need? What do you need, baby? This is one of my rescue kittens, by the way. Her name is Kaya. We found them when they were about 4 weeks old, and they're getting pretty big now. It's really easy when you're at home planning your thru hike to think about how much money you're going to spend each month and tell yourself that you're going to spend most of your time in the woods and not at hostels. This is definitely how I was before starting the trail last year. And then you get cold and wet and really hungry, and you haven't had a shower in several days, and you cave in and go to a hostel. So next year I'm gonna really try to be conscious of how much I'm spending and stick to that goal. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the mental aspect of the trail. So everyone talks about the mental part and how to prepare for it, but honestly, I haven't found a good solution. And I know the book called Appalachian Trails is really helpful. I've actually read it like 3 times at this point, but I still don't feel like fully mentally prepared, even though I've hiked more than 700 miles. By the way, if you haven't read Appalachian Trails, I definitely recommend checking it out, and I will link to it in the description below. But anyways, when you're on trail, I'm not gonna lie, there are times when things are gonna get pretty boring. You're gonna hike 20-mile days, you're gonna hike day after day in the rain, and there's not gonna be much to see. Ooh, nice. Darn, I wish I could see. It's all part of the experience, and it's part of the Appalachian Trail, but I'll be honest, sometimes it sucks and it's easy to get bored. So what I try to do during those days is listen to podcasts and audiobooks and music just to keep my mind entertained. Even worse than boredom for me is homesickness. So when you're on trail, it can be harder than you think to stay in touch with family and friends. When you hear them doing things like just going to the grocery store or going to the pool, it's just gonna make you really miss home, and you're going to wish that you were at home with them. I think being on the trail also gives you a lot of time to think about what's important to you in life, and for most of us, that's our family and friends. It's great to think about what truly matters to you in life and appreciate your friends and family while on the trail. But when you have a really bad day, don't be surprised if you just spend a lot of time wishing you were at home instead of being on the trail. I think there's really not a lot you can do to prepare yourself to deal with homesickness. I think you just have to know it's coming and be prepared to work through it. I also think that homesickness will affect some people more than other people, but for me, it's really hard. Okay, so number 7 is my biggest fear, and it's probably a fear that a lot of people have, and that is failing my Appalachian Trail thru hike attempt. When I set out to hike the trail in 2022, I'll be honest, I did not think that I would make it. I'm not sure if I talked about this a lot or not, but I pretty much had a I'm gonna go as far as I can attitude going into the hike. Ultimately, I ended up making it a lot further than I expected to, so that was good. There it is. I have officially completed 700 miles of the Appalachian Trail. But going into my hike this year, I have a really strong desire to complete the entire hike. Because I have such high expectations for myself, I think that I'm going to be more upset if things don't go as planned. I think putting that pressure on myself might be good at the same time though, because it's going to push me to keep going even on the days when I want to quit. Unfortunately, I do know from firsthand experience that a lot of things can happen during a thru hike. I broke my tooth and I injured my hip, but I also saw people on the trail who had more severe injuries and also family problems during their hike. You can't predict what's going to happen on a thru hike, and of course my health and my family are going to be my #1 priorities, but it's definitely going to be harder for me to get off the trail this year. I know that if I do end up getting off the trail for a reason that's out of my control, that I can always try again later because the trail isn't going anywhere. Well guys, I think that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoy the holidays and we're getting closer and closer to the beginning of thru hiking season. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy watching these videos, and I will see you all next time. Bye!